So let me see, we're going to go back to my agenda. And the next thing we're going to do is, it says to here is to introduce Brahmatirtha. Okay, I guess I'll do that. Okay, that's on here. I'm Brahmatirtha. Also Bob Cohen. I think everyone knows me, but we'll say something wonderful about myself anyway. So I was with the original institute in 77 when Prabhupada sent out that letter it was referred to before, give us all your scientists, engineers, and whatever. And I got a call through Damodar, Brahmacharya then saying, can you join us? You are the absolute best geologist in the entire Krishna movement. And I knew that to be the case because I was also the worst geologist in the Krishna movement because I was the only geologist. So that makes you best and worst. And so, I was challenged to write a paper, and it was, I won't go into the details of what I wrote, but it worked out very well. And it worked out well. It was a paper on evolutionary topics because Sariputta gave me the mathematical analysis I needed, which was beyond me. I mean, usually we become geologists because we don't like mathematical analysis that much. And so and then we began a friendship that lasted his entire life. Sariputta was mentioned before. He was a very good eater. There's a backstory to that you don't know. He didn't suffer fools very well. And when he would go to events and people would ask really dumb questions, which would happen, he would sometimes give them overly snappy answers. So I had to figure out a way to deal with that. So the way I dealt with that is I stuffed his hollow leg before we went to a program. Fed him everything I could. He was skinny, but boy, could he take it in. Then he'd be real mellow and he'd suffer the fools okay. So that's the backstory on what my job was. More about me. I'm now the director of the Institute. I'm also co-director of ISKCON Resolve, the Conflict Resolution. And as most of you know, I joined the movement. I was a high school teacher in India, and I met Prabhupada, and our conversation we had for 3 days was memorialized in a book, which is now 59 languages, and I still don't understand what happened. So we're going to now present and I'm going to do you all a wonderful favor in honor of Sariputta. Beyond any of your expectations, this will happen. I will be brief because Prasadam is waiting. The introduction to the book is a brilliant essay, but we're going to go through it kind of briefly. What we're doing is we're going through Sariputta's books. This book club's been going on a while, but now we decided to make it a formal public program. And we have a schedule. I think it's Leela is once a month. I think we do twice a month, twice every other week. We're going to have it will be in Zoom. It will be in person, and we're going to have a presentation on a chapter and a discussion. And what did we learn from it? What's missing in it? How has things changed since he wrote it? Well, how does this fit in now? And so, and we have various PhDs. You know what PhD stands for, don't you? Oh, come on. There's BS. You all know what that is. MS is more of it, and PhD, they say, is piled higher and deeper. But putting that aside, and with all due respect to our PhDs, they're brilliant. And our PhDs will, yes. Excuse me?
Spare us old jokes.
Oh, spare us old ones. Thanks. We'll spare the old ones. Thanks. I needed that. I needed someone to tell me that. My good friend Ashish, I could trust him to tell me the truth. Oh, we have it now. Okay. So the mechanistic world. John Maynard Smith, the famous evolutionary biologist, said, the individual is simply a device constructed by the genes to ensure production of more genes like themselves. Somebody takes a freshman course in biology, they will come away with this impression that we are just machines. Thoughts, feelings, hopes, desires, love, irrelevant. Everything is a machine made of matter. Now, this worldview hasn't changed in a long time. There's different metaphors given at different times. For example, in the world of sci-fi, you'll find the metaphors from 50, 60 years ago, or what if all the telephones in the world got connected and became intelligent? And then it was, what if the internet became alive? And now, what if artificial intelligence became alive? It's always the same metaphor. It just changes with the technology, that the machine, we are nothing but a machine. For physicists, I like this quote, the mathematical abstractions of physical theories seem more real than the tangible physical phenomena. You talk to quantum physicists, they say, well, we can't tell you what's going on, but it's in the math. Richard Feynman from Sariputta, like this quote, said famously, if you understand quantum physics, I assure you, you don't. And I spent many, many hours in the last year brushing up on quantum physics. He's correct. So let's go on. Implications for life. Okay, biology. Sariputta is presenting here, are living organisms, are they just a combination of material elements? Do we need consciousness? You start off with a primordial soup, and he pushed his information theory. The amoeba doesn't have a whole lot of information, let alone primordial soup. But as the evolutionary tree progresses, more and more information is there. And biologists rarely apply good mathematical theory. They're biologists. Physicists rarely interact with the biology. Sariputta's strength and the strength of the Bhaktivedanta Institute, we are extremely interdisciplinary. We don't have competition among us. I shared this one story with Sariputta, which didn't amaze him, but he knew it. One student at the University of Florida in chemistry, he was a student at Krishna House, living there, a graduate student, and he wanted to take a course, one of his required chemistry courses that was at the same time as another course he needed. So he went to his professor, can I take this course in chemical engineering? He was chemical engineering. Can I take it in chemistry department? Same textbook, same syllabus, same course. And they said, we would never allow that, because universities at times, not always, have trouble working together. The strength Sariputta's on the BI is we can do a lot of cross interdisciplinary work. And so we're going on and see that. Steven Weinberg has this great quote, human beings more or less are farcical outcome of a chain of accidents reaching back to the first 3 minutes of the universe. So Sariputta's thinking, does that make sense? Of farcical accidents. If any of the constants, the Planck constant, the Planck distance, the whole series that are thought to be the fundamental constants at the time of, let's say, the Big Bang, if they didn't exist, we wouldn't be here if they were off by a tiny, tiny bit. So is this all by chance, or is there some consciousness there? This is the challenge he is making. We're going to go on a couple of slides, possible mechanistic explanation. So the question for one of the issues brought up in the introduction to be explored in the book, remember this is the introduction, we're not exploring the topics here, is survival of the fittest. Does natural selection lead to people's cultivation of higher qualities and moral principles? a big challenge is all of us are seeking love. What's the Beatles song on that? Love, love, love. Seeking some kind of love. How does that fit in with this extremely mechanistic view? So Sariputta is challenging that. Then he comes to a very interesting point, which is religious beliefs. Now, religious beliefs give people a sense of meaning, purpose. It deals with teleology, ontology. It deals with all these things. But is religious belief, and we go to science versus religion slide, is religious belief opposed to science? Now, we have a sordid history that the disputes between the church and the science. Is a universe heliocentric? Is it geocentric? Turns out it doesn't really make a difference. You can pick any, you can make it moon-centric if you want. It just makes math more complicated. But the question is does religion and science interact? And the good news is the Vedic point of view, the Vedic literature, allows us to bridge the gap between science and spirituality. And that was Sariputta's, in this first book, that what he was trying to do. Many people are convinced science more important than religion. Real knowledge is scientific, mechanistic knowledge. We have the logical positivists, which the only thing you can know are what you can know empirically. The problem with that is, how do they know that? Because you can't know that empirically. So they're kind of stuck in this endless loop. We've seen in those who've seen science fiction movies where the computer's going wacko, and then someone gives the computer a paradox they can't solve, and it blows up and they're saved from the destruction by the computer. It's a common theme in sci-fi. So the logical positivists, as Sariputta demonstrates, they got a problem. What's the solution between religion and science? Simply put, Sariputta said, mechanistic worldview has a lot of truth to it. We're not denying it. It's simply not the whole truth. And the prevailing theories in biology and physics have a defect because they're leaving out consciousness. So a truly scientific system, what he's seeking, of spiritual knowledge that extends or exceeds mechanistic. Again, we're not replacing it. Sometimes we have to challenge pieces of it, but ultimately we're not challenging it. Great progress has been made. I mean, they're discovered a Higgs boson, various fields, and all kinds of discoveries. There's still the missing link. So Sariputta is claiming to advance a theory that can resolve the dichotomy of mechanistic and non-mechanistic science. So there's 4 criteria for this theory. 1, observations cannot not always be represented in numerical form. I can show that to you. Consciousness, how do you represent it in numerical form? We had our conscious and science program 2019, 400 people came to opening night, 150 maximum we have at our registration, and we had the top person in the world in this area, or one of the top, Stuart Hammeroff, a lovely man, trying to show, though, that you can describe consciousness by quantum fields in microtubulars in the brain. That's what we're dealing with. Consciousness, if consciousness, just working assumption, is non-material, then are we looking at it the right way? That's the challenge of mechanistic science. Second, absolute reality must have some aspect of personality. We're all persons. So if the absolute reality beyond us, the one behind the many, doesn't have personal qualities, how do we have it? And personal qualities mean there's some free will. Free will means love can exist. Third, we must at times, not always, disagree with theories of modern science, as Sariputta puts it, to some extent. And spiritual knowledge cannot be harmonized with mechanistic theories unless the mechanistic theories admit they can't explain everything. And I'm going to just move on. Fourth item, such a theory must have a source, meaning such a theory, where does it come from? Is there an ancient wisdom tradition that can add some knowledge that can help us understand the dichotomy between mechanistic and non-mechanistic? And in the book, Mechanistic Science, as those who attend will see, and you won't be bored coming, we'll see there is some wisdom that can add. Similarly, modern science sometimes helps us understand the ancient wisdom. When I study, I'll give you an example that I believe it's in a book, but it might be. I'll give you a nice example that points it out. There is a concept that 150 years ago didn't even exist, called time dilation. Who here knows what time dilation is? Okay. Who doesn't know what time dilation is? Who would like to know it? Okay, we'll go on. So let us say Prishni and I had these perfect atomic watches. This has really been done, so this is not theoretical. And sync. And Prishni came to me and says, Brahma, you know you're spaced out. And so I decided to follow her advice and become an astronaut. And then I went to the International Space Station, did my thing, moving 25,000 miles an hour. And then I came back a year later. Our watches would be out of sync. Time varies with how we're moving. Now, up until Einstein, it wasn't Einstein who invented the concept, but Einstein's the one that developed it. Up until Einstein published his 1905, it was basically unthought of. It was just something a few people would think of here and there. But time dilation is real. In fact, it's so real that every GPS satellite has to be regularly calibrated, because if it's not calibrated, you will get more lost than you were already. So they have to be constantly calibrated, because their clocks don't move at the same rate our clocks move. This concept is well found in the Puranic literature. I mean, it's just there all the time. It's always there. So there's something modern science can help us understand parts of the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam actually can give us insights because it's telling us about consciousness. So it's this kind of two-way street that Sariputta is also developing in this book and other books. So what to expect in the book? Well, he's going to present Bhakti Yoga as an alternative to as an alternative view to just mechanistic science. In the first 8 chapters, he gives a critique of modern scientific theories, and then he gives an introduction to Bhakti Yoga. Then, a very important statement, he doesn't prove that Bhakti Yoga is the only possible alternative to a mechanistic universe, but he presents it as a reasonable candidate. Very, very important. We're not trying to be holier than thou. We know it all. No one else knows anything, but it is a reasonable alternative, and it turns out a very good one. And in order to understand Bhakti Yoga, there's a problem. And it's a difficult one. You have to practice it. Now, if I want to know the temperature outside today, I'm not going to use my speedometer. It's not going to be very helpful. And the only instrument I have is a speedometer. I will never know the temperature. So we have to use the right instruments. one of the points Sariputta is making is what are the right instruments for measuring consciousness? And if consciousness is really something greater than matter, it may not be the ordinary instruments of matter. Though, as the PAIR project has done at Princeton, they've demonstrated that you can show the impact of consciousness on matter. Very, very important seminal work's done there, and we hope to build upon it. So the book will show consciousness is not mechanistic. Personality is the irreducible basis of reality. And then it goes into other concepts, which I won't go into now. The book concludes with presenting Bhakti Yoga as a working hypothesis to better understand the difference between mechanistic and non-mechanistic science. And with that, I will conclude here and ask, are there any questions, comments? Anybody want to raise any issue? Yes. Well,
I just have one comment that just came to my memory. Srila Prabhupada was once asked, are there instruments for measuring spiritual energy? He said, yes, Mridanga and Kartal.
yeah. Prabhupada was very concerned that his early followers ate well. Because Prabhupada's intention was really to, hippies were obviously the early followers, but he wanted his people to be really have good brains and think deeply and study and have, in order to do that, it requires, the Sanskrit word is sadhana, it requires some regulated practice to elevate the mind. And so that is part of the Bhaktivedanta Institute. Any other questions? Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah, a while back, Vedanta Maharaj was making a point that we really have to update things. He was talking about Darwinism, we have to update what science is discovered. He did make the point at the beginning that even made it more unlikely that everything was just happened by chance, chance mutation. But my question is, why do we have to reinvent the wheels, in the sense that many of you may have heard the name Michael Behe. Sariputta mentioned his name. He had spent some time with Bhaktivedanta Maharaj.
Yeah,
There's an autograph on that.
I've read all his works, yeah.
Right. So it seems like Michael Behe has gone to great pains doing exactly that. He's very biased, but that's not the issue here. He just showed in 1996, Thomas Black Box, 2007, The Edge of Evolution. And since then, he's gone on and he's done that exact work. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't add to it, but he's like a fellow traveler. And is it wrong for us to not exactly depend on, but to make use of?
We do all the time. We're still working with Stuart Hammeroff. We might disagree sometimes with him, agree, but he's a lovely fellow. And he attended we have a neuro group, mind-brain interface. He attended one or two of our workshops. Edward Kelly from the University of Virginia, who's done extremely important work on a non-physicist view of the world. He attends our workshops. We work closely with the International Conscious Research Lab. Now, Behe's work has often been challenged, so we have to look at it in the context. And when we look at work, we look at the work and we look how the work's been challenged. And then we have to see, does he make his points? One of his early points he made didn't work so well. Some of his later points have worked better. That's the nature of the scientific process. Yes.
Real quick. I believe his latest book, or his next to the latest book, is a whole book about answering challenges.
Yeah, I saw it. No, I saw
I'm not
it.
saying it's the end of the age, but
No, it's not. I have it. And Druta Karma's had been quite a bit of touch with him. Yeah. So we don't want to answer your question very simply. We do not reinvent the wheel. We build up on this. And if we stand tall at the BI, it's because we're on the shoulders of people like Suk Damodar and Sariputta, that's what makes us tall. And there's a great intellectual world. One of the things we cultivate in our own personal life is a certain humility. We're not afraid to take advice from whoever can help us out, be it Michael Behe or anybody else, or Richard Dawkins even. They have some things to say that we need to listen to and understand. So part of the approach that we need to take is a certain humility Sariputta certainly had. But thank you for that. Yes, Kalia.
Are all of Sariputta books currently available?
Yes, we put them all back. We started off by putting the books back in print. And then we evolved into a BI. The first mission was friends of his headed by Prishni and the late Yamaraj and Tamra and Stita D. Mooney worked feverishly to get his books back in print. They're all in print. They're all Amazon.
Yes, they're all on Amazon.
Yeah.
I also have some in my trunk. Actually, I brought them. They're under my table. So I have,
Yeah. Anybody wants his books.
get a really good price today.
Yeah. From you, we make no profit.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, touch of it.
Where it's Sariputta be?
76.
With that, we'll conclude